I would like to go ahead and call this virtual special council meeting to order. Today is October 7th, and it is 7 p.m.
Yes.
If I can please have a moment of silent meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, may I please have?
One more minute. Okay. Councilmember Urban,
Here.
Councilmember Roman,
Here.
Councilmember Perrella,
Here.
Vice Mayor
Hold on. I can't. I'm just gonna give a summary of it. The Florida governor has permitted virtual meetings
Can I
and
interrupt? Can you
waiving
hear him?
the quorum requirements that there's a requirement to have physically present a quorum of elected officials. The village council has advertised this special meeting pursuant to its procedures. Excuse me?
No, we have a bit of a, I mean, you're coming in and out. It's a pretty bad connection.
Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but in and out. Is that correct, everybody? Yeah,
Are you able to hear me?
we hear you now, but in and out.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to log back in. Did you get the gist of the, okay, let me see if I can log back in. Yeah, I was just gonna summarize that the governor COVID-19, this meeting was adopted and advertised pursuant to the village's participate, and we have these procedures, and if everyone on the council agrees with it, just say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. I'm gonna see if I can log back in and out.
Okay, Madam Clerk, may I have a motion to, excuse me, Council, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda, Madam Mayor.
Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Nickerson. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Nickerson and second by Councilperson Urban to approve the agenda as is. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, hearing none, our agenda for this evening does pass. We're going to move on to, there are no approval of the minutes, so we are going to move on to acknowledge. We have no acknowledgements of visitors or special presentation. Good and welfare. Kyle, have Joe Geller's hand up in good and welfare.
You're muted. Mr. Geller.
For the moment, I'll just note my presence. The council has seen the correspondence. We believe that by vote of the council at the last regular meeting that my firm and myself were appointed. Greenspoon Moore was appointed as city attorney. That's the language. But in view of the very limited agenda, I don't see the need for us to waste time on that. We had previously approved the resolution for legal sufficiency. There is one addition that I think is inappropriate, which I've had the opportunity to discuss with some members. But other than that, I'll note our presence. We're here monitoring and prepared to act if called upon. But since it's a very limited agenda, I don't think that's going to be necessary. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else in good and welfare?
No, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Seeing none, back to the council. Yes, Vice Mayor Nickerson.
I think I see Attorney Serafin. I don't know if we want to bring him over now, Madam Mayor, or as soon as we get into the resolution, but we might want to bring him over.
I think once we get into the resolution, if there's a motion to, and then, yeah, I think that's the attorney that you all, or the manager has chosen. Okay.
Madam,
I give us like seeing none. For good and welfare, Councilperson Roman, did you want to add something in good and welfare?
I do want to state something, but it doesn't, I don't know if I should do it in good and welfare, or I want to do it before we move on to the item.
The resolution, well, the only resolution we have on there. Yes.
Okay, so what I wanted, I'm going to go ahead and say a couple of things, and then I'm going to read something into the record, and then I'll provide it to the clerk. So basically, I feel that Greenspoon Moore has violated the RFQ because they have engaged in prohibited lobbying of the administration and council. After our last meeting, it was apparent that the RFQ's cone of silence was violated. I then learned that Mr. Geller spoke with the administration and other members of the council. And although Mr. Geller did not personally call me, I did receive a call on 9/21 at 5:52 p.m. from Bob De La Fuente telling me that he spoke with the village manager who told him it was okay to call me. I told him I didn't have any questions regarding the RFQ, but I was wondering why he had called me. Because of that, I knew that he was clearly breaking the code of silence, period. And I told him I didn't have any questions. I did ask, I was wondering if they ever had flat fees, retainers with municipalities, and that was the extent of our conversation. So after hearing that Mr. Geller also violated the RFQ, I went back and reread the RFQ and confirmed that section 1.6 of the RFQ prohibited any of the proposers from lobbying members of the council and the village's staff. Section 1.6 states that the respondents are hereby placed on notice that all respondents are expressively prohibited from lobbying, either directly or through the use of third parties, the village council members or any evaluation committee members or employees of the village for any purpose relating to the solicitation. Any qualification submitted by a respondent who violates these requirements will not be considered for review. The village's department of the village clerk shall be the only point of contact to question clarifications concerning any aspect of this solicitation. In addition, I wanted some clarification, and I reached out to Jose Arrojo, the executive director for the Miami-Dade Commissions of Ethics, to get his opinion. And Mr. Arrojo confirmed to me over the phone and in writing that the county ethics codes of cone of silence found in section 2.1.1 applies in El Portal, as it does not appear that El Portal has adopted an opt-out ordinance. Allow me to read his response on the record. Dear Councilperson Roman, thank you for speaking to me this morning about the penalty provisions contained in the County Ethics Codes of Silence, found at section 2-11.1. That section prohibits communications between a potential service provider or bidder and a selection committee or an elected council person. You should know that I have verbally and by email addressed the application of the county COS to El Portal with attorneys Norman Powell and Joe Geller. The county COS applies in El Portal inasmuch as it does not appear that El Portal has adopted an opt-out ordinance providing that the county's COS shall not apply to the village. I've also shared with the two gentlemen that our interpretation of the COS provides that where the elected body is serving as a selection committee, without any staff recommendation, then there should not be communications between proposers and council persons outside of publicly noticed meetings. You have advised that some prohibited communications may have occurred in El Portal's procurement of a new village attorney. As a background regarding the application of the COS to your selection process for village attorney, you may wish to consider a recent opinion issued under INQ 2020-09. There, we considered a Village of Biscayne Park RFP for the village attorney legal services that received 5 responses. Because the Village of Biscayne Park, like El Portal, does not appear to have adopted an opt-out ordinance, the county's cone of silence applied. The RFP document did not provide for a selection committee or staff village manager recommendation, but rather left it up to the individual commissioners to vet and interview the candidates. The Village Commission conducted public interviews of 3 to 5 candidates, but delayed making a decision until the Commission's next meeting. Applying the provisions of the county COS to the described procurement, the COS commenced at the time the bid was advertised. Thereafter, there should have been no communication regarding the RFP between the proposers or their representatives with selection committee members, the mayor, or members of the Village Commission outside of a duly noticed public meeting. Section 2-11(1) provides that a violation by a bidder or proposer of the provisions of the COS renders the award voidable in the discretion of the awarding body. Thank you for contacting the Ethics Commission. Best regards, Jose J. Arrojo, Executive Director, Miami-Dade Commission on Ethics and Public Trust. Mr. Geller inappropriately contacted the village manager and lobbied council members. Therefore, the cone of silence renders the award voidable, and his firm should be disqualified. We cannot allow any proposer to violate our process without any consequences. I am deeply concerned about the way that this process has been handled, and I want to make a motion and recommendation that, number 1, the council reject all the proposals. Number 2, that we implement an RFQ or RFP process that would include a selection committee comprised of municipal attorneys to evaluate the proposals and make its recommendation to the council. That concludes my statement.
Council?
Madam Mayor, if I may.
I'm going to mute. If you have, Vice Mayor, if you have something to say, go ahead and say. I'm just going to mute it because of my dogs.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand the cone of silence. Thank you for that, Councilperson Roman. The cone of silence, I think, extends to most RFQs, including like waste management, the waste contract and things like that, if I'm not mistaken.
It depends. I spoke to Jose Arrojo, who says that he received in writing something from the manager as we had a RFP for it was an RFP, not an RFQ. We had an RFP for waste management, and the code of silence was not placed on there, but we did have a selection committee. And this was a little bit different because we did not have a selection committee, and it was directly with the council, and there were two. So not only was there a code of silence inserted into the RFQ, but there was also that it was very clear that it was prohibited for lobbying the administration or council. So there were actually two inserts in this RFQ.
Okay, so it differentiated from the waste management one, from the waste services one then?
That is correct. It was a different process.
It was a different process, but I think what Joe Arroyo is stating is that the cone of silence applies because we have not opted out of the cone of silence of the county. So I think the cone of silence will apply, and it is always the right thing and best practices not to speak to any vendor or anything like that during any process, whether it's an RFP, whether an RFQ. But what I'm seeing here with the RFQ was that there was actually language in there specifically twice that talked about the cone of silence, and then it talked about lobbying members of the administration and as well as the council members.
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to clarify, because I'm under the same thing as you as far as the cone of silence, should be applied in that case across the board. And if interim Powell wrote that for the waste services cone of silence didn't apply, well, then I think that's where the confusion might have came from the village manager. That's my only.
Right, and just to speak about any confusion, yes, I did ask the interim village attorney, Powell, in August of 2020, if the cone of silence applied to the RFQ or the RFP for the waste services, because Mayor Cabillos asked me, is there a cone? And I said, I think so, but let me just get a statement together. And I asked interim attorney Norman Powell to review a statement I put together to distribute to members of the council about cone of silence. And he said, no, he wasn't aware, or that we don't have a cone of silence, but it only applies to procurement, was his exact wording in the response. So this was not a procurement situation. So from that, I took that, I assumed, because he's the attorney, that we had opted out or we were not under the cone of silence. And that is when I got the request about being able to speak to the members of the council, I went to the vice mayor and the mayor and asked, and then when Vice Mayor Nickerson said yes, Mayor Cabillos said that she didn't think that she wouldn't respond because she didn't think it was appropriate.
I have to give you
And
my
then-
response.
Well, I know, you can give it in a second. I know you had a response, but from that, I then took it to, when Mr. Geller contacted me again about the response, I said, well, yes, but I'm allowing everybody to have the same opportunity if one person's going to have it. So then I called Mr. De La Fuente and Mr. Powell and said, look, this is what's happening. It's the day before the meeting, but I want everyone to have the same opportunity because, the cone of silence, from what I understood from the email from interim attorney Powell, was that we didn't fall under it. And that was all he said. It was 2 sentences. And from there, I took it that there was none, but I wanted everyone to have the same opportunity nonetheless. So there is that, that is my rationale for that, those phone calls.
So we must clarify because there is a clear distinction. I don't have the RFQ for waste management in front of me, but I don't believe there was language written in there specifically addressing not only you cannot lobby, but you can the cone of silence. So I think that's one point. But I don't think that was a problem because neither company contacted me, and I don't know if they contacted any of you. And as Councilperson Roman said, there was a selection committee. When the manager called me to ask me if Joe Keller can call me, my exact response was, if he's asking that question, that he shouldn't be a municipal attorney because he should know the answer. That was my exact response. And I don't know what the manager said to Attorney Geller, but not only did he call me, he texted me, of which I did not take the call and I did not take the text. I didn't respond back to the text. But that was my specific response because I had read over that RFQ and I had seen the language that was written in there. So I just found it odd that an attorney would ask that specific question. To call, first of all, to put the administration and then us in that predicament.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. So when the village manager contacted me, you know, knowing that you know, we didn't have the interim village attorney said there's no cone of silence for the waste services. I told her, I said, look, as long as it's equal for everybody across the board, and that's what I told Manager Luke. So as long as whatever we do, as long as it's equal for everybody across the board, you guys know how I am about equality. So I was like, as long as it's equal for everybody across the board, I have no problem. They can do what they want to do. But that's based on the language that interim attorney Powell gave to the village manager. So.
I'm sorry, but there was a cone of silence and it was stated a second time. Again, Madam Mayor, if I may, I am making a motion that we reject all of the proposals that were presented. That includes interim village attorney Powell, the other firm, which I can't remember, Bob's firm, and Green's Food Martyr. And I am, as part of that, I recommend that we implement an RFQ, preferably an RFP, because I think it really should have pricing. It shouldn't just be qualifications. I do believe we need to have pricing, and that the process should include a selection committee that is compromised by municipal attorneys who are experienced to evaluate the proposals. And if we want to include some residents on there, I'm open for that too. But that is my recommendation to the council, because clearly this process was flawed.
No, if I may, I mean, you were reading, Vimari, you were, Councilwoman Vimari, you were reading about Joe Arroyo's statements and referring to an RFP. Now, this was an RFQ, even though there was no pricing involved. It was not. It was just a qualification. And as I, got the phone calls from both attorneys, it was basically to, introduce himself to me. So again, if this was a mistake, somebody's responsible for it. And like I said, I even called the village manager because we had the process. Within this process, we didn't have a clerk, and my concern was she was the one being in charge of this. And I even asked who was filtering the calls, who was like, who were the applicants calling and contacting. And because the email wasn't there for the clerk, so the clerk situation, and I have to go to that because nobody took, nobody asked the council, nobody did anything, but the attorneys went and did what they needed to do, and we were asked to that. So they violated also, the charter and whatever's in place, because they fired, a charter employee without even asking us to do so. So it's a lot of things going on, and I think somebody has to actually, take responsibility for this, because if it's, like I said, I did call, and I don't know if I was the only one concerned about the RFQ being conducted without our clerk being on place, because we didn't have a clerk for 2 weeks while this was happening. And the village manager said it was okay not to cancel it, to go on. So that was my concern. I wasn't happy to having just 2 new, applicants, but I would say that that's what it was. And so I based my, decision on, of course, the RFQ. But I was the first one not being, asking for it. Whether it was fine to keep going at it or keep, with the process, or stop it and wait until we had a clerk and somebody that actually had, the because I didn't know anything. Everything was handled like, you know, I don't know who got the applicants, who do they call, who got emails or what. So to me, the fact that they were allowed to talk to us, I thought it was fine because we were in limbo. I was in limbo. I didn't know who was, who was who, and how do they got there to apply, and how do, and of course I know Mr. Geller was, he's been servicing the village for many, many years. But other than that, it's, I don't
I
know.
mean,
I don't know whether it
I
was.
understand what you're saying, and I do, you know, now when I think back, I should have agreed with you that we should have thrown at the last meeting when you requested and for us to throw this out and to really send it out again and start the process over. Sometimes it's not until after we're gone from these meetings that you start to think and process. At least for me, I start to process and I sleep on things, and really that's that's part of what's happened. So otherwise I would have agreed with you, Councilman Perella, at the last time to just void this process. But at the same time, I did read the RFQ. We are responsible for reading the RFQ and making sure that we know what's on there, because I found it, and the other attorney, I'm pretty sure he noticed that I was very short with him, and I said no questions. I was very surprised by that call. And Geller did not call me. So, but again, Madam Mayor, I don't know if we're in a position to second the motion, or where we're at in this conversation.
Any other comments to what Councilperson Roman has stated or suggested?
I do have one comment.
Madam Mayor, excuse me, can I just interject?
Yes.
Why don't someone second this motion for discussion or let it die? Because right now you have a formal motion on the floor
Okay, thank you.
you have to deal with.
Yes, okay, thank you. Right. Okay, there's a motion. Councilperson Roman, can you repeat your motion?
Okay, sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I motion and recommend that the council reject all of the proposals that have been submitted and implement an RFP process that would include a selection committee comprised of municipal attorneys to evaluate the proposals and make its recommendation to the council.
There's a motion made by Councilperson Roman to reject the process and not paraphrasing her, to start the process all over again with the proper selection committee. Is there a second? I'll second it. All right, now the Councilperson Urban, you were going to say?
Yes, in terms of process, part of what motivated me to run for the seat originally was that I felt the village had too many interim positions for long periods of time. This process is already years down the road, and in light of the information presented by Councilperson Roman, while it certainly raises some concerns, I weigh that against someone who has for 2 years said it doesn't matter at all whether he stays or goes, just whatever the council decides. And then what has taken place at the end of this process and the effort given to delay and now erase this process, I cannot support this motion. And for the time being, that's all I had to say.
Sorry about that. I was having a hard time there. Any other comments from the council? Okay, if there's no other comments for the council, I'm going to open up for, I see somebody, an attendee with their hands up. So I'm going to close the special council meeting and I'll ask member who has her hand up to please come in.
Hi, this is Amy Mayhew, 255 Northeast 88th Street, El Portal. I have to tell you, I am exceptionally disappointed right now. I know many of you, and Councilperson Roman, I applaud you for bringing this before the council. I find it to be embarrassing that it was such silence to get a second to even review a process as crucial as a chartered position as a city attorney's position. I think Joe Geller is phenomenal as a person. I worked with him when I was personally working in the Village Hall. This has nothing to do with him as a person. This is our process. This is our democracy and this is our processes, and nothing, no matter how small or how large, should we overlook the right way to do things. And if we're not doing it the right way, as identified here, we need to be fixing it. And my blood is boiling. I have been a resident here for 37 years, born and raised here. I raised my children here. I expect our council, our mayor, to advocate properly for all of us. It is ridiculous that we have 2 vacancies at this current moment for council people. That says something. Do something. And what I'm asking you to do is to follow those processes properly. And now that it's been called to the attention that it's not being done properly, I expect as a resident that it gets done properly because it matters. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Any other member, any attendee has a comment?
Well, yes, if I may. Well, like Councilman, I'm sorry.
Hold on a second. No, it's okay. I just want to see, I'm going to finish up with the attendees. I'll close and I'll come back to the council. Give me 1 second. Any other attendee? I apologize for my dogs. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comments and open it up back to the special council meeting. Councilman Perrella.
Yes, as Councilman Anders stated, so this process should have been done years ago. So we had an interim attorney that's been sitting there for almost 3 years, and as a matter of fact, a contract had been asked, and it wasn't until a few months ago that it was presented, or nobody knew who had negotiated the contract with the current interim attorney. So interim positions should be filled up within, replaced within 3 to 6 months. So now that we went through the process, and now you have people that is like, we should have been concerned about either run for council or asking why we hadn't replaced the position for an attorney. As we've been having this interim attorney for almost 3 years, and process was never done. So process is a process. We went through it, and I think we got what we got. I'm happy with what I voted for, and that's my position.
Okay. Any other comments from the council?
I would just explain that this is a different process. We did not, and it wasn't, yes, I stated that in plenty of meetings, and I will state it again, that it was not a priority because we were in the middle of working on a whole bunch of projects, but I would support whatever the council did. There are 5 people on the council, not just 1 or 2. So this process, if we did not send out an RFP or an RFQ process for the village attorney, it has nothing to do with what we're going through today now with this process. There are 2 different issues here. The first issue that you guys are bringing up is that this took so long for us to send out an RFQ and RFP. That's nothing to do. That is a completely separate issue than what we're looking at now, where we have a flawed, something that I am not comfortable in voting in. Because you know what? Our residents have asked for us to be transparent. They have asked, I don't know how many times. So that minor, that vocal minority that we have on Nextdoor, that vocal minority that comes to our meetings, that is what they have asked. And this was not a transparent process. This was a process that knowingly few people on this council have broken this process, because you knowingly took the phone calls and had discussions with attorneys. And this is an ethical violation. So forget about the fact that this is a process that's broken. It's unethical. So if you want to move forward with an unethical, something that is unethical, then let that be on your shoulders. But I will not allow it to be on my shoulders. I will not allow it for me to put my head in my pillow and know that I have done a disservice to this community, that I have not followed the oath of office that I have taken and been sworn to take. That concludes my statement.
I also want to add, and it's unfortunate Warner Juries aren't here, because I think in the last meeting, I want to say he was the one that asked us about ethics. When you get an opinion from ethics, in my 12 years, I've learned that it's something you follow, because when you don't, it's not over, because the Commission on Ethics is there to watch what the elected officials do, and it's for the public trust. Clearly, I'm not gonna. It doesn't matter really who it would have been awarded to. The bottom line is that there are provisions of the RFQ that were not followed. And, and I find it sort of, not comical, but I guess interesting, because, on a minor note, that wasn't the only provision that wasn't followed. And there was specifically also put that you use recycled double-sided. That wasn't even followed. So, I mean, the attorneys have to actually read documents, because reading matters and words matter. And I want to believe when that was put in there, I don't know if it was put in there to test to see who would really read it, or who would really abide by it and just sort of follow procedure. So I think that while perhaps maybe we have grown from mistakes, I think the one thing that the village has gotten much better on, I think, is that we do try to have procedures. Long time ago, everything just ran to council, nothing went through committee. We try to run things through committee now to give the opportunity to residents to hear more. We don't make decisions right away. We put it in between council meetings and put a town hall there. So, I mean, I do think that the council has put in provisions to ensure that we don't make rash decisions, even though rash decisions still happen. But I didn't get the ethics opinion, but if I'm hearing it from ethics, it's enough for me to have to caution and proceed with caution, I think is the better way to put it. And I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was Perella, Urban, or Roman, but yeah, interim position has been around for so long. But and I don't know how long Powell has been here. I want to say maybe since spring of 18, maybe 2.5 years. But guys, in 2.5 years, we've been through so many lawsuits that it was really hard to change attorneys in the middle of, even though I think the council had discussed it many times to have it, but it was always trying to put one fire out and then this out, and it was just hard for us to do it. And then it was the Panoni contract, and then it was this, and it was just always a timing. It's kind of like right up there with the waste services, right? We extended that waste services so much, and I don't think it was because we wanted to. I just think it's because other things take precedence, or the administration of the council is always putting out fire. But having said that, I go on the call of ethics. Sat on the call of Claudia. At this point, it's really on the call of ethics. So in my 12 years, I don't have violations except one that someone put upon me, and that's fine. But I'm not going to start now. So if you all don't have any more comments, I don't know of the administration or hold on, Luis Perella, Attorney Powell, but
Yeah.
give me 1 second, Manager, if I'm going to open up to
No,
Councilman.
go ahead, that's fine, but I do want to make a statement.
Yeah, no, and as far as that, I also contacted Susan at the Ethics Department, as a matter of fact, to ask her whether it was fine with me as a council person to share to RFQs with residents to get an opinion and stuff like that. And she said it was fine. I tried to call like 5 residents that I know, nobody answered. And as you know, COVID and all of that, you couldn't actually drop the document in one house and then bring it to another house. You have to be, precautions and stuff like that. But I also did my, research and try to do that, because I thought for me it was also important for residents to actually have an opinion, because I'm not an expert when it comes to lawyers and stuff like that. Give me some numbers and and I'll work with that. But laws and stuff like that, I don't. So I was trying to to get between the 3 the best for opinion for all the residents, but unfortunately I didn't have response from the residents I called.
Any other members of the council, if not the administration? Vice Mayor Nickerson?
Did you want to go to administration first, or you wanted to?
You can go first, and then I'll open up to the manager.
I mean, we can, because she was before me, Madam Mayor, so.
Christia, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to state that, I'm hearing the statements of everyone here. I've worked with all of you. Councilperson Erbaum and I worked quite a bit on this whole RFQ process in the Admin and Finance Committee. We went over every line of this RFQ. I think it was workshopped about whether it should be RFP. RFQ was determined from the committee, and it went forward as an RFQ. I know the councilperson Erbaum went through this, line by line with me, with the former village clerk, and we then presented it appropriately and published it. Sadly, when the village clerk separated service from the village, a lot of her duties went to me. From that, I spoke with members of the council, just take on some of these duties, do what you can to help us out. I just completed another RFP process and said, listen, as long as I have access to the emails, I'll do my best. And so I responded to questions and issued an addendum on the last day of questions, and presented the items as I received them. Again, going back to, I worked with the information I had. I'm not the village attorney, so I didn't know that we needed to opt out. I assumed that there was one, either we were in or we were out. I asked the village attorney or the interim village attorney. I was told, no, and that this was about procurement, and I moved forward from that vantage. So, there is, I guess, an issue, but quite honestly, I'm working from the advice given to me by the interim attorney on the previous RFP. So that is from where I went and made the determination to contact the members of the council to even ask if they would be open to that. I understand that there is cone of silence. I am aware of that. I've worked for the county as well, but again, I'm not the village attorney, so I'm taking the word of the village attorney in terms of whether we've opted out or whatever the mechanism was needed that would apply to the village at that point. And so that is from the vantage I was working from. I hear what you all are saying, and I am here to assist in any way possible, but just know that that is another reason why I was determined to ensure that everybody had the same opportunity once the question was asked and answered about allowing the attorneys to speak to other attorneys or other members of the council, because there may have been a perception of unfairness just because interim village attorney Powell was employed by the village at that time. That's
Vice Mayor Nickerson, before you say something, I have to say something. We keep going back to the RFP for waste, but I think where everybody it keeps missing is that, and Christia, I don't contradict you ever on here because I support the work you do, but if you and Councilperson Urban worked line item by line item, then you wrote those provisions in there. It clearly states that the respondents are not to lobby. And then there's another provision where you all wrote, if you're telling me that you all wrote it, put language in there that there has to follow the cone of silence. You all put the provisions in there. You did not seek guidance from the interim village attorney because this was for legal services. You may have sought it for the RFP, but there is a mistake to have assumed that what applied for that RFP was applying for the RFQ, because I'm sure the language is very different. There is specific language that specifically says that the respondents are prohibited to lobby selection committee, administration, and council members. There is language that if you're telling me that you and Councilperson Urban did it, you all put that language in there. So I find it hard to believe that you're saying that, you know, you worked on it and workshopped it with the admin and finance committee, but then you still allow them. It does not. If you, I can understand if you didn't write it with some member of the council, but it wasn't a template that came from another city.
No, actually, it was a template that came from another city.
I will object.
The line item by line item. You just said that in your.
I said that, but yes, meaning we read it and we went through the pertinent points, and I'm sure Councilperson Urban will interject. But no, this was based on a template. We weren't working from scratch, Mayor. So this is not written from scratch.
If I may,
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So this was a template. However, it was gone through line by line by myself. I trust the manager when she says she did the same when I presented it to her. And if we cut to the chase here and understand that it is clearly at the council's discretion as to what is the consequence of the award soliciting, to what degree. So essentially, this is, with this motion comes that trial. I will speak after the vote again, but for now, I will say this. I have also spoken with ethics. And so, you know, in conversations I've had with ethics, the clear indication from them that I received was, it is up to the council to address issues within the council or within the village, within the charter, within the administration. So it has been clear to me for some time that it is the council that needs to make decisions and act, right? And so additionally, for the benefit of the concern of that resident whose concern is valid, that is a valid concern to have. And so I will help any residents who feel that way understand how I have arrived at this decision. And part of that was from conducting my evaluation with our manager. And just as she clearly stated, I found that several issues that I grilled her for were a result of advice given by council. And these are large ticket items with consequences. And so I'm not going to get into all of that right here. It would not serve any purpose. But for the residents who are concerned, I have weighed my decision and I will sleep well.
And so it's important to, that we're letting the vendors know that procedures don't matter, and it doesn't matter. There's no point in having an RFQ and an RFP if they're not going to be followed. There's no point in having provisions in there when we're allowing them to violate the provision. So I find that coming from actually you, Andres, I find it really hard to believe, but that's okay. I mean, the provisions were on there, and it says it's strictly prohibited. You're right. The onus falls on us, and it's kind of our job to be above board on that. They violated the provisions of an RFQ that was written by the members of our council. It has to mean something. Council, I don't know if Norman Powell was going to say something before I ask for a vote, and I don't know if Vice Mayor Dickerson finally spoke. I don't remember. Vice Mayor Dickerson, did you finally say something? I think you were going to speak after the manager. Did you want to say something? Powell?
I'm just going to simply say that anything I would say would be self-serving. I would just wanted to correct one thing that I believe Commissioner Urban, Councilperson Urban stated. My statement is always simply that I serve at the pleasure of the council. That's all I've ever said. It's not that I don't care, because clearly the amount of time and energy I've spent working with the council and the administration demonstrates otherwise. With regard to the RFQ, I guess I was the only one that decided to follow the plain language of the document because I didn't call anyone. And there are two different provisions in the RFQ. There's a cone of silence provision. Whether or not there was confusion as to its applicability to an RFP or RFQ, that confusion could have simply been corrected by seeking further advice from a third party, since I could not have given advice on the document. But I think the bigger question is what is it that you all are going to do as a policymaking board when it comes to the sanctity of your procurement process? It's just that simple. Are you going to allow a process to go forward where there's clear violations of its provisions for whatever reason, or are you simply going to do as the resident suggested, follow what democracy and this process requires? You know, if the council wishes, that's your decision. However, I have to tell you, I was deeply concerned when I did get the call, the message from Ms. Alou the night before the process was to be decided by the council, that there were participants calling members of the council and lobbying and giving their qualifications. I would have certainly loved to have coffee with each of you and giving you chapter and verse what I think I could do and not do, and concede and not concede. But I didn't have that opportunity because I followed the language in the RFP. I didn't even consider myself with the cone of silence. I considered 1.6. It couldn't be any clearer. So even if you were confused about the cone of silence's applicability, 1.6 is clear. It says, do not touch, it's hot. You don't have to wonder whether or not it's above a certain temperature. You're not supposed to touch it. So that's just all I have to say.
Vice Mayor Dickerson, did you need to say something? All right, any other comments from the Councilperson Urban? Is your hand up again? Okay, Councilperson Urban.
So I take Attorney Powell's points well. However, it complicates matters a little bit for him, because what we essentially just established was that advice was sought, advice was given, and it sounds like the advice given was potential sabotaged applicants. So I'm still going to sleep well tonight, and I still will not.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. That is the absolute most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. That advice was given months ago. And by the way, Christy and I did not even have a conversation. There was an exchange of emails. And what my clarification to Christy was, if you really want to know, is simply that the village had not adopted a cone of silence. I wasn't asked about whether or not we
have a point of personal privilege.
Yes. So to the extent that you're
May I have a point of personal privilege?
I'm not the chair, Mr. Urban. I'll complete my thought and through the chair. The chair runs this meeting. I could simply say to you.
Madam Chair, may I
that
have a point of personal privilege?
Well, can I finish my comment?
100% you will. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm just saying that I think it's very unfair to put on the record that I would forecast months before an RFQ was drafted to give bad advice in order to seek a competitive advantage without any basis whatsoever is I don't even know how to, can't even wrap my brain around that thought. It's just unbecoming and unprofessional to say something like that.
Councilperson Urban. Go ahead.
As I said, the resident raised a valid concern. And so I have a responsibility to address that concern. And so I'm going to state my perception, my angle, because the resident deserves to know my thought process on any decision. And where we stand now is going to be at an impasse, and it's not going to serve any purpose to go back and forth on this. And so I am trying to stay in the lane, but I will correct the steering.
Are you done? Are you done? Okay. Vice Mayor Nickerson?
And Madam Mayor, and Mr. Urban, I hope I wasn't trying to insult you. I was just trying to simply state that it's really far-fetched to really believe that I would be such a soothsayer to be able to provide a short email response to a procurement that didn't have applicability to the village to some future process months down the road. That's all I was trying to say.
Vice Mayor Nickerson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate it. So this is kind of where I see things, you guys. So, I've always tried to do things the right way, and it's good to have this, and this is like the beauty of government, right? Because information comes out, and then you can debate it and things like that. So on one hand, we have that, which we've established it was a different process. We have, the interim attorney saying that, for waste services, there wasn't a code of silence. Okay, so that was an RFP, not an RFQ. So we have that. We also have the ethics, communication and things like that. I don't know, before I go any further with my thought, village manager, did you get an ethics result from when you informed ethics about the waste services communication with the, with interim Powell saying there wasn't a cone of silence or whatever for that? Did you get any response from ethics?
Well, that was never presented to ethics. The RFP for the waste services RFP was just a month before this. So it wasn't months in advance, it was just a few weeks in advance. But when the mayor asked me, are we doing, is this under the cone of silence? I started drafting something because I assumed it would be, but then I proposed it to the interim village attorney to review before I issued it to you all, because I wanted to, just ensure for legal standing quality that it was appropriate. And the response was, oh gosh, I wish I could find it, but it was just 2 sentences. But the point was, we don't have a cone of silence. This is about procurement. I mean, I will find the email and send it to you all, but just that's how I took, I took it to mean we don't have a cone of silence, and that the county version is about procurement. So when this issue came up on this RFQ, knowing I just went through this a few weeks before, I just assigned that same standard because I didn't know what to assign to it. I understood what was in the RFQ, but I also wanted the opportunity to be equal across the board. And that's why I just called everyone and said the same thing. It was just merely to make it as equal and as balanced and leveled as I could make it.
And Councilperson Roman, when you got the response from the ethics, it said that this should be, what was it? Should be not veto. What's the word I'm looking for?
Voidable.
Voidable. Did it say that this is voidable, or did it say that this should be voided?
Section 211(1) provides that a violation by a bidder or proposer of the provisions of the COS renders the award voidable in the discretion of the awarding body.
So, okay, voidable up to the council, basically. So basically, Councilperson Erbaum, you got the same thing. It's up to the council at the end. This is the thing, you guys. I always want to do things the right way. Because I've been there where, there have been, people in the council, or we even see it like in our national government and things like that, to where they try to push things through. And I've even been there here on this council, on like this council, like they're sitting now, but in this council, just over the years, where things are done, and I'm like questioning it, and it's done where it's like it's pushed through, and it's not done the right way. I just want to say to everybody, when things are done like that, even if you come out on the side that you want to come out on, there's always like a shadow over you. The reason why I didn't second what Councilperson Roman motion, or well, Mayor Cabillo seconded. But the reason why I didn't second, the reason why I wouldn't have voted yes for that is because I do not feel that there needs to be a committee. I don't even necessarily feel that there needs to be an RFP. If we were to have the same process that we just had done over, because if we're talking about a committee, and no disrespect to you, Councilperson Roman, I understand what you were saying. I don't necessarily disagree, but it's just like, we're talking about putting a committee together. Like, so we're talking about like a long time before everything kind of like pretty much happens and takes place. Now, I just don't want that. But I do want to do things the right way. My suggestion would be, I know Councilperson Roman, I know. My suggestion would be is that we redo the RFQ process. You put it back out for like 2 more weeks, or something like that. And we don't have to change the RFQ. You don't got to change anything in it. Leave the cone of silence. That's it. And we just redo it. We just take another 2 weeks, take applications again, and we redo the process, you guys. Because at the end of the day, you don't want any gray clouds over your head with this process. You don't want that following you around. Trust me, you don't want that following you around. I've always stuck to that. I always want to do things the right way, and that's kind of like what I feel about it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, if I may.
Sorry about that. I'm having a hard time on my mouse here. Councilperson Erbaum and Councilperson Perrella.
Okay. So, the reason I feel that we do not need to do this process over is because I can only speak for myself. Now, I don't represent myself. I represent every resident in this village. So I could choose to only listen to a constituent, which would be a voting resident, and potentially a constituent would be a voting resident for myself. And so I don't think of it that way. A lot of our residents can't even vote. So do they not have representation as well? What I mean by that is I can only speak for myself, yet I do represent the village of El Portal. In terms of incorrect processes and levels of concern, we still have an unaddressed issue of where the former interim Attorney Powell's contract is or came from. Fine. You can rise that to whichever level you choose. Some residents will prioritize it, others will dismiss it. In terms of what has been brought to light by Councilperson Roman, I can say that I did not solicit any communication from candidates. In fact, I did not even vote for the awardee. However, the awardee was my second choice. And so for me, as I see fit to represent the interests of the village as a whole, I will not support this motion.
Councilperson Pirelli, your hand's raised.
Yes, I just have another comment as Vice Mayor Nickerson touched on, the cloud following you. And I just want to say something. I mean, like Anders said it, and village interim attorney said it as well. So the attorney serves as a pleasure of the council. Now, how was the interim attorney got here? How was it chosen? How was the process? Because for my understanding was was on one night, in and out. One attorney was fired and the other ones in. There was, so why I don't see an issue here that we actually went through a process and was presented with three whatchamacallit, three
like 3 applications
applications and resumes and three firms, 3 lawyers. And so I think the process was clear and clearly, more clear than what, whatever happens when the interim village attorney was appointed, wasn't it? Or how was it that process?
Okay, I'm going to go to Councilperson Roman, then I'm going to open up for public comments.
So I just want to address that because that was a different process because of the fact that we dismissed. We basically let go our attorney. By charter, we cannot let go our attorney without having one on. So if we were to let go of Norman Powell, dismiss him because he is not doing a good job like we did with Mr. Geller, then yes, we would have to appoint someone interim in the meantime while we send out the RFQ process. The whole intention, if you guys go back to 2.5 years ago, whenever that happened, the intention of the council was to hire this interim attorney and send out the RFQ process immediately. It just did not happen that way, but that was the intention. And that is the main difference. The main difference is that we basically let him go.
Vice Mayor Nixon, did you have your hand raised again?
Yes, Madam Mayor, but you should probably go to the audience first. I know the attendees were waiting.
Yeah, you all have a meeting after this, right? Okay, I'm gonna close the special council meeting and open up for public comments. Who do I have? Amy McHugh?
Hi all again. I appreciate all of you really taking the time out to discuss this as thoroughly as you have so far, but I just want to make sure I understand correctly.
Please state your name and address for the record again, please.
Amy Mayhew, address 255 Northeast 88th Street. I want to make sure I'm understanding, and I'm not sure if it's the city attorneys or if it's the village clerk who can verify that I'm understanding correctly, but what I'm understanding is, as a voter, my elected body is saying that they are not going to follow the direction of our county ethics commission and follow suit in following the correct direction of the RFP process, the procurement of illegal services. It is procurement of legal services, that we will not follow the ethical way of doing that procurement service as prescribed, as read by Councilperson Roman. I want to verify that that's what my elected officials are saying to me. Anybody? I don't mean to be that resident, but I'm being that resident. I am never that resident. I am that resident right now. I am homeschooling my children about democracy, about what it is to be civil servants in our society. And that is what I'm watching transpire, is my elected officials that I vote for. And I am one of the voting residents for 37 years. And I've been a voting resident since I was 18, proudly. I heard an ethical recommendation that I didn't realize was something that we could choose to not do as elected officials. Councilperson Urban, if you personally were not a part of whatever just whatever has happened and transpired, I respect that, commend that as a personal person. But you are my elected official, and my elected official, despite whatever part of the process that he has done, represents making sure that the whole process transpires correctly. And while you may not have been a part of the broken process, I would respect and appreciate my elected officials ensuring that the process goes forward correctly. And this is not the correction of the interim position. This is the correction of the procurement of our legal services formally going forward, if I'm not mistaken. And if that's correct, then I want to ensure that that's done properly. And if it goes to the same person, then that's congratulations. But properly is not taking everything and going, oh, well, we're just going to start all over again, but doing the exact same thing. Because clearly the exact same thing didn't work out. Only we're just not going to let them talk to us. And I don't know what the fix is. And I don't know if it is Councilperson Roman's way. And maybe it is. I don't know. But I would like to have a whole honest conversation from my elected bodies on how they're going to rectify this, not accept that something went wrong and that's okay. That's not okay for me. That's not okay for me as a voter at all. And we are coming across voter season. And while granted, we have nothing but uncontested seats and vacancies, I can be sure to be as vocal as possible because I currently have nothing but time on my hands to be a mother and to be a resident, and I will be that person. This is unacceptable.
I'll address that.
Councilperson Urban?
Part of the issue here is a miscommunication. So that is a significant weight on the scale. So a significant reason for the origination of that miscommunication is that our clerk wasn't there. We were left without a clerk. So I asked a very direct question to both our interim attorney Powell and special counsel Bravo that the decision reached between the two of them would not affect the business of the village. I had assurances and promises from here till tomorrow. And that is yet one more piece of why I cannot support starting this process over. And the level of concern raised with, I've not heard one single person even remotely approach the subject of questioning Attorney Geller's ethics in this issue. As has been discussed this evening, the origin of the problem is a miscommunication because a piece was missing. A significant piece, a critical piece. And again, that miscommunication resulting in this discussion tonight is but one example of why I will not support this motion.
I'm gonna first close public comments because I don't see any more hand raised, and I'm gonna go open it up. I'm gonna have Vice Mayor Nickerson, Councilperson Roman, and I'm gonna close it off because I believe we need to move on. Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You guys, let me lower my hand real quick. You guys, as I stated earlier, things just need to be done, I believe, the right way. Things just need to be done the right way. I think that, I think that, you know, in the past, there may have been things, Councilperson Urban, you bring up a good point, you know, about the contract and who negotiated, you know, interim attorney Powell's contract, and, you know, we never got the answer to that and things like that. But, you know, I've always been under the belief that even if things weren't done right in the past, that you shouldn't do the same thing, right? So even if, you know, in the past, you know, there might be things that you feel that, you know, other members have done that, you know, may have been, you know, not on the up and up or whatever it is. You shouldn't be like you shouldn't be like that also. You know what I mean? So I just think that we always have to try to stay above the frame and just always try to do things the right way. So my suggestion is, and, you know, as far as the process from before, I don't think there was anything wrong with the process from before. I think, as members have pointed out, we might have had, you know, we had people that there was confusion with the, you know, probably was a wrong assumption or something like that, but there was a confusion, you know, with the whole thing with the waste services and the email from interim attorney Powell with not a cone of silence and this is different. So there was a confusion with that. I think that coupled with just the what Mayor Cabillos pointed out in a way, you know, just that coupled with just applicants that just didn't read the RFQ the right way or just didn't look at certain things in the RFQ. I think coupled with those type of things, there's nothing wrong with the process itself. You know, there's nothing wrong with the RFQ itself. I don't think we need a committee. I think that we can open it back up and, you know, we can give the same length that we gave the last one, which was, I forgot what it was, Madam Manager, 2 or 3 weeks. And we can do the same thing because we'll still get, you know, the applications, we'll still get the resumes, we'll still get all the information to be able to make an educated guess on the on who the next attorney should be. Now, you guys know I always try to find a middle position. As far as Councilperson Urban, Councilperson Perrella, and it seems like the frustration in having to do this whole process over, it seems like you guys have a frustration in, you know, I guess the work product of Attorney Powell. You guys, the same way Attorney Powell came in, if you guys want to, what can happen is you guys can motion to remove Attorney Powell tonight and have a new interim attorney come in. You can do that right now. You see what I'm saying? So you always have that option, you know, because all attorneys, they serve at the pleasure of the council. So you always have that option also. Thank you very much, ma'am.
I really want to narrow it down because I think that we're just repeating ourselves. So I got Councilperson Roman, and I'm going to close it off and say something because I think all of your minds are made up. Councilperson Roman.
Okay, so I just want to address two comments that were made. Number one, there is an ethical violation from the attorney because the attorney engaged after knowing that there was a code of silence as well as a second provision stating that there was no lobbying or contacting any of the administration and council. I also find it very difficult to believe that our village manager, who also has a law degree and is an attorney, would not know that that is a violation. Number three, I said I had two, but I actually have three. The negotiation with Mr. Powell, our interim attorney, was a negotiation of money, just like the negotiation between our future attorney. It will take place with the council. That negotiation took place within the Admin and Finance Committee, and then it went to the full council. So that was the negotiation that we accepted. The Admin and Finance Committee accepted the amount we were paying him for an interim attorney, and then it went to the full council and the full council. There was no legalities, that the contract did not go out because he was an interim attorney, and that was not a process that was explained at the time.
And so if I may, so the negotiation rate went to 300%. We were paying the previous attorney $1,500 to start paying to an interim attorney $8,000 a month. I mean, that was not a wise decision. And, but again, if what Vice Mayor Nickerson said, we have an attorney also here as an attendee, which is the one we had appointed. And if we, if we have to make a motion to then contract Mr. Geller as an interim attorney, I don't know what we have to be done.
Okay, so
now, also speak to what.
Now I'm done. I'm done. No,
I understand, but my legal background was brought into question, Mayor, and I have to speak.
Manager.
Mayor, my legal background was brought into question about what I know as an attorney. You're right, but I'm not the village attorney. And in my August emails to interim attorney Powell, I asked him, do we follow this cone? He said, what are you talking about in these emails that I just forwarded to you? And I said, aren't we following the county? Now, I don't know that we've adopted something or not. I'm not the village attorney, I'm the village manager. And so when he wrote back to me, the village has not adopted a cone of silence. The city's only, or the county's only, this county cone of silence only applies to procurement. So I went with the attorney's advice. So my law degree and my practice is not in question here. I'm going by your village attorney's advice.
Okay, so I'm going to call for a vote, and I'm going to just say, because we are all over the place on emotions, but let's just stick to facts, okay? The fact of the matter is that there was a written provision, not just one, but there was two, and it was strictly violated by members who applied for it. It's the bottom line. It doesn't matter if the clerk was here or if the clerk wasn't here. There's no guarantee if the clerk was here if that wasn't going to happen, because I question a municipal attorney of 26 years to ask as to whether or not they can call members of the council, because that tells me that he didn't read that legal document. He probably has some paralegal or his legal assistant read it, because I would like to believe that a legal attorney read those two provisions, not one. So forget about it. Doesn't matter what anybody said in an email. We're talking about this RFQ that was reviewed by two members on this meeting. Two, not one, two, and then at a committee, which three of you sit on. And if you all missed that there was two provisions that was clearly violated, because it doesn't, again, this doesn't boil down to how long anybody's been here or the clerk has been gone, because if the attorneys who responded would have just read and complied, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's the bottom line. But they didn't comply. Okay, that's the bottom line. So is it really shame on us? Well, whoever took the calls and whoever engaged in an inappropriate conversation. But the onus is really on the firm and not on the individual that did, because they were supposed to read the RFQ. And hey, benefit of the doubt, if they missed it one time, well, crap, there was another time. And it was black and white. There's no graying about it. So again, it didn't matter if the clerk was here or it doesn't matter here. Attorneys are going to do what they're going to do, and it was violated. And these are provisions that we agreed on and voted on, and the admin and finance voted on. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. It doesn't matter what the RFQ for waste did, because waste, none of the companies called me. Did they call you? That's why they're not in question here. I don't know why we keep going back to that. We're wasting time. Stick to the facts. The facts is, yes, I agree. The process was fine. You guys did a lot of hard work. You guys put a great RFQ. Anders was assigned to it because the bottom line, Anders, you really wanted to be a part of it. But at the end of the day, this was a process, and the process was fine. But the provisions of the RFQ was violated by the respondent. That's what's in question. Forget about everything else. That if that didn't happen, we would not be here at 8:26 at night, 1 hour and a half on a discussion. Is it because the firm that you all are considering violated what the provision said? Something to think about. I don't know. I don't know. And I will throw out there, hey, I'm not going to be here in 5 weeks. Some of you are counting the minutes, and good for you. But let me tell you something. Careful, because if I was in your shoes, maybe you all should just wait until your 2 new members are going to be on and make a team decision. Because right now, 3 of you are grinning maybe or confident, I think, that it doesn't really matter what Claudia and Vamari think. It doesn't matter. Why are they even here? Who cares? I'm telling you, I will speak until November 17th when I pass the gavel. All I'm saying is the facts. The provisions of the RFQ was violated. It was clearly told by the Ethics Commission that they were. Forget about cone of silence of county. Forget about what email was said with that is irrelevant, because even if you missed that, there was another call. I think what section 1 point, I don't have it in front of me, clearly says no lobbying. And if an attorney doesn't know what that means, or a firm doesn't know what that means, then I would question whether or not you all even want to hire that firm.
There is zero mystery about the drama between our mayor and Attorney Geller.
Point of order, that is it. Discussion is over. Yes, bear with it for 5 more
Ethics made no recommendation. Ethics made 0 recommendations.
Doesn't matter. Ethics says that it is voidable because the provisions were violated. And clearly, maybe you're not reading correctly.
For someone who turned off the camera at every meeting in the last 2 months, all of a sudden there is a significant interest in the outcome of something that's going on in the village after checking out 2 months ago.
So all I know is in all the RFQs that we've done, we've never had any respondent violate. Never, ever, ever had a respondent violate an RFQ and RFE. 0. I am going to ask, this is a special meeting and the vote can only be on the RFQ process. So we have a, having said that, there can be no other motions, by the way. This is not a regular council meeting. So your idea of dismissing the attorney cannot happen, because this is a special council meeting to address one thing. So having said that, Madam Clerk, can I have roll call on the motion that was put forward about an hour and a half ago?
Councilperson Varela.
Excuse me, because I'm the first one to vote, and the motion said something about also creating a committee or the residents to or like a. So can you read the
selection?
Yeah. So this, yeah.
The motion is to reject all the proposals and implement a selection committee, including municipal attorneys and residents. Vice Mayor Nickerson made a suggestion, but Councilperson Roman would have to accept the friendly amendment to her motion to accept his suggestion. But that is the motion on the floor. Are you ready for the vote?
Oh, the Councilperson Roman accept the friendly amendment?
if she would accept Vice Mayor Nickerson asked that the proposals just go back out without the selection committee. So she would have to accept a friendly amendment, or you would have to come back, make another motion, make another second, and vote again on that.
I do not accept the friendly amendment because I feel like the process that will not fix this process. I feel like the process will still be flawed. And so at this point in time, I do strongly feel that a small committee, just like we did for the waste management, is formed, especially being that two of us are not going to be on this council as of November, and you will have 2 vacant seats. And so if you're not waiting until you fill those 2 vacant seats, then I do believe that it's very important that, so that you're not accused, so we're not accused of failing the process again, that a small selection committee is put together.
Yeah,
Madam Mayor, are you
vote
ready
for
for the
that
vote?
motion.
So is that a yes or no to,
She said no.
no. Sorry, yes, I am.
Councilperson Perrella,
No. No.
you're ready for the vote. Councilperson Perrella,
No.
Councilperson Urban,
No.
Councilperson Roman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson,
No.
repeat, sir.
No.
Mayor Cabello.
Yes.
Okay, the item passes to not to, the way the motion is, the item passes not to void the process 3-2.
I'm confused, Madam Mayor, if I may.
Uh-huh.
If we were supposed to vote on the agenda item and there was to be no votes because of special council meetings, there's to be no votes on anything additional, like for example, replacing interim attorney or anything like that. What we just voted on was additional, it wasn't on the agenda.
No, well, this motion directly impacted the resolution that was coming before us.
Right.
Directly.
That's why I just want to get that clarification.
Yeah. Okay, so it failed 3-2. Having said that, the the majority of the council wants to move forward with the resolution that was in our agenda. So if I can please have the resolution read into the record.
A resolution of the Village Council of El Portal, Florida, authorizing Richard Safran Esquire to negotiate a legal services agreement with Greenspoon Marta LLP, Joseph Pascal Esquire, for the council's approval and providing for an effective date.
There's a resolution read into the record. Is there a motion to consider this resolution?
Motion to adopt the resolution.
A motion made by Anders. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilperson Perrella. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a question, Madam Mayor, for the whereas, the fourth whereas, where it says the October 27th, why is there, why do we have a set date this time? Like, I don't remember other resolutions in the past, we never had a set date. I'm just concerned just in case, like, something happens, or, if somebody's injured or she's sick or something like that, if it can't be exactly done on the 27th, let's say if it takes longer than the 27th, I don't know why we're putting ourselves to a set date. So I would just kind of motion to move to strike that fourth whereas.
So you also know that we passed a resolution in the September council meeting and emulate that resolution. So I'm under the impression that the reason that this resolution, even though Anders thinks that I don't work, I work very hard. So the day tomorrow that you actually start working, you can make those comments. But I can tell you this resolution should have never come forward, because the resolution that we passed at the September council meeting was very clear and specific. Number one, it already authorized the manager to contract an attorney to work for the legal contract. Number two, her purview is already only $5,000 before coming here to us. And it already had that date. And that date provided 1 month of work because that is when the council would meet. So it would give a time frame of when the new firm could start. So I think tonight was a horse and pony show, but that date was already on and it was already adopted. Now, if the council didn't read and do its work, but it was already the resolution in September that passed by all of us.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I may. Yeah, it's September 22nd meeting. So the resolution was adopted in that section 3 that you were talking about, where it authorizes the village manager to obtain legal services. First of all, like for me, this is not a dog and pony show. Unlike in the past, I wanted this.
Vice Mayor, all due respect, you all have a meeting. I think Anna Ward came on here saying we all talk too much. With all due respect, everything is in black and white. They can just read the reso from September.
22nd.
Guess what? This resolution is it's unethical, so it's only gonna pass by 3 of you. So the 3 of you wanna change the date, go ahead and do it. You have the votes. It's okay. Whatever you guys wanna do, it's your show. Whatever you wanna do. If you wanna change the date, then make a motion to change it. You have to make a friendly motion because I think there's already a motion to pass the reso or something. But it's there because that's the next council meeting. It just makes logical, sequential sense. So is there a friendly amendment?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, a friendly amendment, motion to move to strike the actual date of October 27th, but keep the rest the same.
All right, so do you want to have any date to approve the contract at all, or are you guys going to do it?
No set date, no set date, Madam Mayor.
You're not going to set a date. So you do know that until that date is set, how is your attorney going to start? You don't know what fees are charging.
Madam Mayor, the contract I expect should be done by the October 27th meeting, Madam Mayor, but I just didn't want to put a set date in there just in case if anything happens, Madam Mayor.
There's a friendly to the clerk if we're doing it incorrectly. We've been going.
You're correct.
So,
if the person making the motion and the seconder agree to the amendment to strike the date, they can strike the date and leave it open-ended.
Okay, perfect. So is there a second to accept the striking of the date? Is there a second to accept the striking of the date? All right, seeing as there's no second, I guess.
I'll second.
A second by Councilperson Perrella. So there's a second to strike the date. Any discussion on this resolution?
Yeah, I'll just say I did not second that motion because I see it as a non-issue, that date. And so I'll just say that's why I didn't second the motion.
Any other discussion? Seeing 1, 2, okay, no. Anybody, any attendees before we move for vote on this reso and its friendly amendment?
If I may, just one last comment.
Give me one, I've already opened it up to the attendees.
Sorry, forgive me.
Any attendees have any comments? Going once, twice? All right, seeing none, I'm closing public comments. Back to the council, special council meeting. Any discussion before I ask for roll call?
Yes, I'll just say that it seems that concern would be that the village would have an attorney with no contract. Yet one of the arguments presented tonight is that we've had an interim attorney with no contract. I understand the difference between interim and appointed, but permanently placed. But this, I mean, for dog and pony shows, I mean, this is just, it's absurd and ridiculous, and is really interrupting the ability of the village to do business, and it's aggravating.
Is there a question or comment that needs to be considered in that statement? Okay. Seeing none, there is a resolution that has been made with the friendly. No discussion. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, can I have roll call, please?
Councilperson Perrella,
Yes.
Councilperson Urban,
No.
Councilperson Roman,
No.
Vice Mayor Nickerson,
Yes.
Mayor Cabello.
No.
The item fails 3-2-2.
Madam Mayor, if I can make a motion, please, Madam Mayor.
What's yours?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to redo the RFQ process as it was without a committee. Same parameters, using the same RFQ.
Vice Mayor Nickerson has made a motion to conduct an RFQ. Did you say RFQ or RFP?
RFQ, Madam Mayor.
RFQ. Did you say anything else? Did I miss something? That's it?
No, I just said same parameters, using the same RFQ that was previously used.
There's a motion to start a new RFQ using the same guidelines parameters. Is there a second?
I'll second. Going with the same parameters, no committees, no nothing.
No adjustments.
Okay.
It's been seconded by Councilperson Perrella. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll close for public comments. I see a few attendees, no hands raised. 1, 2, 3. All right, close public comments. Open it back to the special council meeting. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, may I have roll call, please?
Councilperson Perrella,
Yes.
Councilperson Urban,
No.
Councilperson Roman,
No.
Vice Mayor Nickerson,
Yes.
Mayor Cabello.
Yes.
The item passes 3-2.
We have any unfinished business, new business? Seeing none, may I have good and welfare? Anybody in the audience would like to, going once, twice? Seeing none, I'll bring it up back to the special council meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Nickerson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilperson Roman. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, our special council meeting concludes at 8:43. Please stand by, and admin and finance will now be moving forward. Thank you. You all have a good night.
Thank you very much, Madam. Does anybody need, you guys need a break? Mr. Jean will let you go ahead and start to get set up.